back to the Black Bibliophile podcast. This is episode 3. The Black Bibliophile podcast is basically where I discuss, review comics, zines, and whatever else I read. It's a straightforward, no-nonsense look into popular texts, and so basically I read books and talk shit about them. Sometimes good shit, sometimes not so much good shit. So I'm just coming back after a long hiatus. Sorry guys, I totally missed a week. Life happens. I suffer from several chronic illnesses, and San Diego Comic-Con was last week. So I have been unable to basically podcast recently. And with that, I have been unable to read an actual novel. So this episode is going to be what I'm going to call the Black Bibliophile Short Stories edition. So this is going to be a shorter episode than normal, where I'm just going to cover all the graphic novels, poetry, and smaller things I've been reading lately. And I have a stack of comics and zines that I've been reading, because, you know, when you are busy, you don't really have the time to sit down and read a full novel or listen to a full novel or however you read/listen to novels. So yeah, I'm just going to go through this pile and tell you about all the shit I've been reading this week. I don't have an author spotlight for this segment, for the short stories podcast, but if I were to have, an author spotlight, I'm going to start with this first comic called Blue Hand Mojo, Hard Times Road by John Jennings. This is a comic book / graphic novel written and drawn by John Jennings, who is also the artist of the New York Times best-selling Kindred graphic novel adaptation. And he wrote and did the art for this lovely comic book. It's published by Rosarium Publishing, and let's get into it. So let me read the back, because that's the best way for you to get a gauge of what this book is about. So, 1931, Bronzeville, Chicago. The mage, Frank Half-Dead Johnson, is a marked man, literally. A drunken decision fueled by a tragedy has left him with half a soul, sorceress powers, and 2 centuries to work off his debt to Scratch, aka the devil himself. The graphic novel introduces the life and misadventures of this tragic conjure man. Watch as Half-Dead attempts to save his own soul, pay his debt, and help many people as he can along the way. It's a hard-hitting hoodoo noir highball with just a splash of Southern Gothic. Smack dab in the heart of the Windy City, hold on tight, it's going to be a bumpy ride down Hard Times Road. This book is amazing. Like, I've never experienced something like this where, so usually film noir or crime noir books are just, the white detective guy going through, the damsel comes into the office and he has to find, like, some dude or some crime or whatever. See Chinatown the movie or something like that for reference. Blue Hand Mojo is completely different. I love the juju. I love the magic. I love Half-Dead because he's just a known nonsense. He's kind of a dick, but like in the best kind of way. Like, he's kind of a dick, like a man who would have half a soul would be a dick. Like, he doesn't have his whole soul, and he kind of works for the devil, so he's gonna be a dick, but in a good way. And the art is amazing. The story is rich and interesting, and it's so good. And it's like all included. It's like a one-shot graphic novel. It's so good. I'm gonna leave a link in the description to it so you can purchase this book. But you should get all your local comic book shops to order this book. It's amazing. My favorite line in the whole book, here, let's see if I can find it really quick, is, so he's going to, his boy came to his hotel to, see if he could help him figure out this weird shit that went on when he did a bad deal. Half Dead used to run Moonshine with this guy, and he was like, all right, whatever. If he's spooked, he's like the toughest dude I know. If he's spooked, then there must be something to it. So he's following this guy to this place to check out the weird shit that he apparently saw. And when they open the door, the room is just like a gory fucking mess, like legs hanging from the ceiling, blood everywhere. And the line is, who knew you could squeeze hell into a room? And the shit is just like, it's like my favorite line of the whole book. And there's a bunch of those amazing lines in this book. And it's great because it's a black male lead, and a very like black-centric story. It's 1930s. It's hard-hitting crime, like weird horror, sci-fi, mystical. It's just beautiful. And the art is so gorgeous. Mr. Jennings did work on this book. It's amazing. And I fucking recommend this to everybody and their mom to go out and buy this. It's called Blue Hand Mojo, Hard Times Road by John Jennings, and it's published by Rosarium Publishers, and you probably can go to your comic book shop and order it. As someone who owns a comic book shop, it's pretty easy to order from Rosarium. So all they have to do is like go to their website or talk to Bill Campbell or whatever. So go out there and order this book. It's amazing. It's gorgeous. It's an amazing story. And I hope there's more Half Dead Johnson books, because I'm a fan and I would read whatever else they put out. All right, so, and that graphic novel is not too long. It's about, I want to say, there's no paid numbers, but it's like a 50 pages, maybe more. But it's really, really good. It's worth it. You won't regret it. And you never see anything like this that combines the noir genre with the black mysticism, with a black lead, and the horror aspect of it. It's amazing. I can't stop talking about it. And I need to, because we need to move on. So, my next book that I read that I'm like having mixed feelings on, I love Roxane Gay, and I love Black Panther, and I love... Okay. So the next book I want to talk about is Black Panther, World of Wakanda. The trade just recently came out, and we got it in our store, and I, read through it because I didn't keep up with the comic books. I just fell behind. So I was like, I'll just reread all of it in this trade paperback. And my thoughts on it are, I love Io and Nika's relationship. I love the focus on that. It's well written. The art is gorgeous. My problem with the actual graphic novels, you have to be reading the Ultimates and Black Panther to understand certain background things that are happening within Wakanda. So if you're not familiar with what's going on in Black Panther, or you're not familiar what's going on in the Ultimates 2, or the Ultimates Squared, or whatever the hell it's called, there's certain parts of the outside story within Wakanda that you're not going to fully grasp. Like, they're just going to skip to certain parts, like after the war with Neymar and all that shit. And I haven't been reading Black Panther, so I was just kind of like, oh, I don't know what's going on. There's holes in the story, which make it difficult to get into the actual World of Wakanda book, which is about the Dora Milaje, which are the female guards to the king, Black Panther, the King T'Challa, and they're also like trained to be eventually like wives. Like, he's supposed to be able to choose from all these warrior women a wife. So, I mean, the story with Anika and Io is amazing. I like the internal stories inside the Dora Milaje and their relationships and the training and like the power struggles that go on there, but I don't like that once it goes outside of that core group of Dora Milaje and like starts to think of or tell stories about the greater Wakanda, you have to have background knowledge of what's going on with Black Panther. So it's probably an amazing companion piece if you know all of that, like what's going on in the recent Black Panther series. But if you don't know anything about that, it's going to be hard to follow at certain points. But it's not impossible. It is its own story, and it is like very much that, but it's hard to put in perspective when you don't understand what's going on in those spaces. Like, you don't know what's going on in Wakanda. Like, if you're not fully read up on what the hell T'Challa's up to, you're not going to know what's going on. Or if you don't understand the Ultimates, like, you're just not going to get it. But it's not to take away from the fact that it's a good standalone series when it's focusing on the Dora Milaje, when it's focusing on Nika and Io, and like the conflicts within there and the jealousy from the character. I forget her name. The one whose dad is the chief that's hurting people and she doesn't believe it. And she's also like she's going outside the Dora Milaje because she thinks that they're not loyal enough. That chick, like, that internal struggle within the Dora Milaje is very interesting, and Nika's trial and all of that. It's just, at times I was thrown out of the story because I had no reference to Black Panther, which means I need to read Black Panther, obviously, and I was going to read it, but I'm just, busy. So, yeah, Black Panther World of Wakanda by Roxane Gay. It's very good. Very good. I'm excited to see what they take from this to put in the Black Panther movie that's coming out. I'm really interested in that. I'm sure, like, the costumes for the Dora Milaje in the film are very similar to the costumes that appear in this book and, like, the technology that appear in this book, so I'm pretty excited about that. Black Panther, so lit. I'm here. Can't wait. And that's my review of that one. You guys can pick that book up. I'll leave a link in the description or the wordy bit of this podcast. I'll leave a link there for it. You could probably go to any of your local comic book shops to pick it up or ask them to order it for you. I would suggest you buy local and, go to your local comic book shops or local booksellers and not go to like Barnes & Noble or something like that. Support local business to pick up these titles I'm talking about. And we're just gonna move on. Actually, we're gonna take a break for a minute and then I'll come back with the rest of the books I've been reading. All right, welcome back to the Black Bibliophile podcast. This is your host, Jazz, and this is, once again, the short stories version of Black Bibliophile. So this is a little bit different from my usual format. I'm just going to riff on a couple of smaller books I've been reading because I haven't picked up any novels recently. I've been super busy and super sick. So because I've been so sick and so busy, I haven't had time to actually pick up a novel. But hopefully the next episode, I'll have a new novel for you guys. Anyways, on to the next thing I've read since we last talked. And it was Nijihara Holograph. So this book is by Aino Asano, and it's published by Fantagraphic Books. And I'm just going to read the back to you so we can get a gist of what the story's about. So Nijihara Holograph. Butterflies ominously proliferate as children whisper rumors of a mysterious creature lurking in the tunnel behind the school. To appease its wrath, they decide to offer it a sacrifice, a human one. But this is only the beginning of Nigehara Holograph, which takes place in 2 separate timelines and involves the suicidal Amahiko Kota, the love-struck bully, their teacher Misakaki, whose heavily bandaged face remains a mystery, and many more brothers, sisters, parents, co-workers, teachers, aggressors, and victims who all are inextricably linked to one another. 10 years later, all will have to face what they've done or suffered through, and may be the end of the world. Nagahara Holograph, complex, challenging, and elliptical, was named one of the most anticipated new manga at Comic-Con International San Diego. Hailed as a voice of the current generation in Japan, Ainyo Asano, whose Solanin, I'm so sorry guys, I'm just butchering this, was nominated for Eisner and Harvey Awards and was made into a feature film, delves into the David Lynchian territory with the psychological thriller horror story. So, this is a manga. This book is a manga. It was a $30 book, so, there's that. The art in this book is amazing. So, this is a hard book for me to talk about because I probably need to reread it because it is very David Lynchian, very like multiple timelines, very Oedipus, it's like Looper. If you've seen that movie, it's kind of like you traveled in time to kill yourself kind of thing. It's like a weird, and I'm not spoiling anything because there's like, the book is well written. The story is really interesting. This is not for children, by the way. And the art is very gorgeous. It's a convoluted story, much like any David Lynch-ish thing, because that's like the best thing to compare it to. David Lynch made the films Eraserhead. He's also the man behind Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, other things I probably can't think of right now. But it's a mind fuck. Like, that's the best way to get it across. It's a mind fuck. And it's a great story, and it's very well weaved together. It's so well weaved together that it's like, you probably have to read it a couple times to get it. It's very much that kind of, you have to do several passes to really understand what's happening. But it is a beautifully drawn, beautifully put together story and a very beautiful book. I think it's worth taking a look at, but just know it is very complex and hard to get into at first. So there is that. So take that with a grain of salt. I can't really go in depth with it because honestly, it's almost impossible for me to explain. So it's a good book. Would I recommend it? I recommend it if you like complex thrillers and if you like David Lynch type stuff. I recommend it. If you're not into that, if you're not into shit like that, maybe it's a good pass. I know I might read it again just to see if I can piece out why I'm having such a hard time explaining it to you guys. But honestly, it's not something that I'm going to go like, hey, you should totally read this. It's an acquired taste. So there's that. So yeah, check that out if you want or not. I'm not going to force you. And then I wanted to bring up, because I just read this last night, I went to San Diego Comic-Con and I picked up Love and Rockets, the newer released magazine issues 1 and 2, and I started reading those. I am enjoying Love and Rockets. It's something that's been going on, I think, for 30 years, so I need to go back and read the earlier stuff because I feel like I'd be way more into it if I knew like the whole story of these people, but I am intrigued and the art is amazing. And the two brothers who write it, Gilbert Hernandez and Jaime Hernandez, just won Eisner Awards at this San Diego Comic-Con for Love and Rockets. So that's also published by Fantagraphic Books. And I'm sure if you ask your local comic book shop, they can order it for you. They have a bunch of trades of everything for over the last 30 years for them, and all those trades are under $20. Those are amazing books by Latino creators featuring Latino characters. So that's amazing, and it's been going on for so long, and the art's so interesting. And it's like Jaime's stories focus on, I believe, Hopi and Maggie, which don't quote me on this, I literally just started reading them, and it's about these punk rock chicks and like the punk scene. And then Gilbert's books, it's kind of like a novella, like a strange soap opera kind of thing that's been going on for years with interchanging characters and families. Like, it's really interesting, and there's these little shorts peppered in and out of there. And I really suggest you guys go check out Love and Rockets. Once again, your local comic book shop should have some in stock, and if not, they can probably order it for you, because I know my shop can. Now, coming to the end of this episode, because once again, this is a shorty episode, I'm going to end with a zine, like we usually do in our normal episodes. This zine I picked up at Comic-Con from my dear friend, Rosie Knight. She is a creator. She created Cougar and Cub with Nick Marino and Daniel Arata, or sorry if I'm butchering that name. And she created this zine that compiles all of her articles, her daddy issue articles, which are featured at womenwriteaboutcomics.com. And I'll read the back of the zine so you can get a feel of what they're about, but it says, I've written this selection of essays on some of comics' worst ever dads. From adopted fathers to absent ones, from rich and fascist to poor and useless, I've got them all. So strap in, grab your daddy issues, a stiff drink, and get ready to realize that pretty much all of your beloved men in tights are not only terrible people, but also terrible parents. And all of these essays were originally featured in womenwriteaboutcomics.com. And I just read through all of them last night while laying in bed, and they made me laugh. And they're just like a interesting take on all of your favorite superhero dads. So, and why they're terrible dads. So Batman, why he's a terrible father figure and a dad to Damian Wayne. So he's a terrible father figure to all the Robins, getting them all killed and all that nonsense. Aquaman, who let Aqua Baby die that one time. Magneto, Professor X, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross. Like, all of them are mentioned in this amazing zine by Rosie. And I don't know if she has them on her website, but you can go check. Her website is rosieoliviaknight.com. I'm going to leave that in the link below. But this zine, it only cost me $5, and it's honestly one of the better reads of comics criticism that I've ever read. And I'm not saying this just because she's my friend. Like, I just loved these articles, and I love the approach she took to this subject, because not many people write comics criticism in the lens of bad dads. So, and with somebody who has daddy issues, this was just hilarious. And this zine, well written, has a really cute yellow cover of her being a sad Batman on it. And honestly, if you can get the zine and pay the creator for this work, that would be dope. But if not, you could just go on Women Write About Comics and check out all these articles, because they're hilarious and it's something different. So it's something different than your normal comics criticism, your normal look into comics. So yeah, that's the end of this episode of the Black Bibliophile. Podcast. Sorry, you guys, for taking so long to get a new episode to you. Life happens. I feel like next week I'm going to try and have a normal long form episode with, the normal stuff in it. I'm going to try to pick up A Wrinkle in Time because I just saw that preview, and for some reason that's the only book I didn't read in school. So I need to pick that up to read it, and maybe that'll be the book I review for episode 4. If you guys have any ideas or any zines or anything you think I should read, comments, questions, or you just want to tell me that you like the podcast, you can email me at Theblackbibliophile@gmail.com, or you could find me on Twitter at Theblackbibliophile at Twitter. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you hopefully soon.